Hey there, everyone! I am Brooks Ewald of Iceberg City Productions here, and you are watching the very first episode of the Spider Queen podcast. Now, what is this podcast, you ask? In this podcast, every time a new episode of Spider Queen comes out, I will host the podcast, and we will listen to and respond and react to what happens in the episode. We will also have members of the cast and crew join us sometimes. It's going to be fun. You'll hear stories from the booth, stories of what happened during creation, and how we feel and respond to the episodes that have come out. So welcome to the first podcast. In this first edition of the podcast, we will be listening to the lost episode of Universe Warriors, The Final Chapters, which just came out the other day. So I hope you enjoy the very first episode of the Spider Queen podcast. Before we start the actual viewing of the episode, I want to explain a few things about Universe Warriors, The Final Chapters. Universe Warriors, The Final Chapters was a 12-part audio drama series that we originally released in 2019, and it was strictly an audio drama episodic series, if that makes sense. As in, there was no pictures, there was no animation of any sort, no characters. And Universe Warriors, The Final Chapters is technically the very final series and saga of Spider Queen, the series. Universe Warriors, The Final Chapters is now considered to be non-canon, which means it doesn't actually technically appear or affect in the mainstream Spider Queen series. Examples of non-canon things are like Dragon Ball GT, and any of the Dragon Ball movies or the Pokemon movies and their franchises. Those are non-canon. They don't actually affect the main timeline of the show. Now, why did we do the lost episode of Universe Warriors, The Final Chapters? Well, as I said before, it was a 12-part episodic series, and I was in a time crunch when we made this. When I made Universe Warriors, The Final Chapters, I had 12 weeks to produce it, so that means I had one show each week. But I was working on more than one show each week because I had to record them all, write them all, edit them all, and produce them all and get them up. So there had to be cuts that were made. And there was one specific episode, which would have been the original episode 7, which just never even got written or anything because we just didn't have time for it. But it was Mycen's actual training in the Ice Temple when he leaves, or in the Fire Temple to become the Ice Titan when he goes to train. That whole thing was skipped over in the original series. It was just Mycen arrived on the Fire Planet, the end, go to Glacia at school, training to become a Grand Vampire. But I decided, well, what would have happened? We could have had an episode of Mycen training if there wasn't the time constraint. So I decided what better way to start out the year, this new year for our channel, would be to create episode 7, the lost episode. So this is the actual lost episode of episode 7. A keynote, Universe Warriors, The Final Chapters is no longer available to watch on our YouTube channel. I took it down because it is non-canon. Right now, it is up for a certain period of time, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before it will be taken down. Episode 7, the lost episode, will probably be staying up for a while, if not indefinitely. But the other 12 episodes will not be up anymore. But if you want to view those, you can still view those right now on our channel for a limited time, and it'll help make sense what's going on in episode 7, the lost episode of Universe Warriors. All right, enough of me talking. I'm going to get into it, and we'll be live responding to what's going on in the video. I'll stop and I'll explain some things, and it's going to be a good time. So here we go. All right, let us begin. We'll pull up the video here. All right, as you can see, here we are on YouTube. You can kind of see the screen. It doesn't really matter too much if you can see the screen because there's not really much that's going to be going on. Let me see if I can turn the mic here. I think that's about as much as I can get the mic to turn without breaking it. All right. Let us begin. The following contains spoilers to Spider Queen, the series. Alright, so as I said there, the following contains spoilers to Spider Queen, the series. What does that mean? As I said earlier, this is the final chapter of Spider Queen, and in order for you to not get spoilers from it being the final chapter, everything that happened before is going to be answered up to here. I wanted to give that little warning.
Iceberg City Productions presents Spider Queen's Universe Warriors, The Final Chapters, recorded at Iceberg City Studios, with additional recording at Iceberg City Studios, New York, and additional recording at Anchor Studios.
All right, so this opening is something that we've actually been working on for a really long time now. Going back to the original Universe Warriors, the final chapters, we had this same exact opening. The voice has changed a lot. It used to just be my voice, but now it's a more like deeper, gravelier voice. You're listening to Universe Warriors, the final chapters. And usually it'll just say, the normal intro will be, Iceberg City Productions presents Spider Queen the series, recorded at Iceberg City Studios, Spider Queen the series, episode, and then whatever episode number we're on. Sometimes, though, you will hear, with additional recording at Iceberg City Studios, New York, or in this case, also additional recording at Anchor Studios. And if it has the additional recording at Iceberg City Studios, New York, or Anchor Studios, audio that is used in that episode is old. Like 4 or 5 years old, because those were different studios that we were using at the time. Iceberg City Studios New York was from when I was living in New York City, and we had made up a New York branch of Iceberg City Studios, which I'm not living there anymore. Iceberg City Studios New York no longer actually exists, but from time to time you'll hear that in the intro because we actually use audio that was recorded there. Same with Anchor Studios. Anchor Studios was a studio that I used to record stuff in. No longer do that. But yeah, you'll hear audio from that sometimes, and that's why the credit is given to those studios. And you'll find out why as we listen to it. There are characters that I voiced in this episode that I haven't voiced in 4 or 5 years, since 2019. And there's audio that is in this episode that's from the original Universe Warriors, the final chapters, and from Spider Queen: The Origins, the Battle of Fire and Ice. I'll point out when the audio is original and when we re-recorded audio just for this episode. All right, let's get back to it.
Spider Queen's Universe Warriors, the final chapters, the lost episode. Previously.
All right. We're going to stop a lot because I want to explain things that are going on. So there's this spacey background that happens. Let me turn the camera a little bit so you can see it. There's like this spacey background. I created this spacey background, and if you look really closely, the stars actually move. I created it in Movie Studio Platinum a long time ago to use as a trailer for Universe Warriors: The Final Chapters. I've not been able to recreate it, so what I have done each time you see this starry background is I literally just take that first, 15 seconds it was from the trailer where it was just the starry background, and then just extend it, because I cannot remember how I did it.
On Universe Warriors, the final chapters.
All right. The background music in this prologue is the same exact background music from the original Universe Warriors final chapters. It's a Ross Bugden. Forgive me if I am butchering your name. I use a lot of his music for Spider Queen the series. He creates beautiful, beautiful royalty-free music, and I use it all of the time. This specific piece I've used countless times, and I used it specifically as the prologue and subtitle for Universe Warriors: The Final Chapters. So when I was editing this video, the lost episode, I wanted to make sure it was as true to the original Universe Warriors: The Final Chapters as I could. So I tried my best to get all of the original music from it and all of the original sound effects that we used in Universe Warriors: The Final Chapters. I worked really hard and searched countless hours on computers to find files that hopefully we still had, and we still have them. But yeah, just want to point that out. This is a beautiful, beautiful piece of music. I wish I could remember the exact name of it. I believe it is The Game Is On. Hold on. I will tell you exactly what it is. It is, I believe it's Run. I think it's called Run from Ross Bugden. Either that or, yeah, I believe it's not Run. It is something, but I use it all the time. I think it's The Game Is On. All right. I'll get back to it.
Glacia returned to the Wizard Academy to continue training. There, she was reunited with Kehito, her long-lost childhood friend.
All right, so the bit here between Glacia and Kehito was the actual audio that was used in Universe Warriors: The Final Chapters, Episode 6. I didn't even want to begin to try to touch Glacia again. It sounded horrible when I voiced Glacia in Universe Warriors: The Final Chapters, and I wasn't going to even attempt it to try to do it again.
Kehito! The joyous time of reconnection didn't last long, though. An enemy had attacked their location.
You saved me. Thank you.
Saved is kind of subjective right now.
What's going on?
It seems the enemy decided to bring the fight to us. Quick, Glacia! We have to defeat them. If they destroy this tower, the whole advanced unit could be killed. Come on! Glacia?
I can't.
What?
I can't do it. I can't fight.
It's so hard for me to listen to that Glacia voice. It's just embarrassing. All right, we are peeking here.
Glacia's fear and hatred of battle left her frozen in the sight of danger. But when Kehito risked his life to save her, she awoke the power hidden deep within. Glacia had become a grand vampire. Meanwhile, back in Iceberg City.
I'm off, Rose. I'm off to the fire planet to train.
That line is not the original line from episode 5. I did not want to have to download the entire audio file of episode 5 just to get that one line. I was really counting on it to be in the prologue of episode 6, and it wasn't, which was kind of very sad. But you can kind of tell that it doesn't sound at all the same as the audio sounded in episode 6. The original Universe Warriors The Final Chapters, the audio was much louder, and in Spider Queen the audio was much quieter, which is weird. But the "I'm off, Rose, I'm off to the fire planet to train," that was not the original line, and I don't like the way that it came out when I re-recorded it. I kind of really wish I had the original line, and I could have done it, but...
After receiving word from the Grand Angel that Daragon, a new threat to multiversal survival, was coming, Mycen left to train on the Fire Planet, for in the ancient Fire Temple lies the Ice Scroll of Sealing. The scroll was used to seal away the power of the Titan of Ice, the power that brought about the end to the Battle of Fire and Ice.
So this is the fire planet, huh? I knew it was going to be hot, but I didn't think it would be this hot. This temperature is really going to drain my power.
That is the original audio from episode 6 of when Mycen first arrives on the fire planet.
Mycen begins his training today on Universe Warriors, the final chapters. The Lost Episode.
Father and son, birth of a Titan.
All right, right away. I forgot to put a period. I forgot to put a period between father and son and birth of a Titan. It needs a period, an exclamation mark, a comma. I forgot to do that. I look silly. The background that we used for this, that is the Fire Temple background, is actually Bakashi's training dojo background from Spider Queen the series. I just edited out the spider logo that's on top of the door and called it good to be what the Fire Temple looks like, just because we didn't want to have to create a new temple for just this one episode. And in typical Universe Warriors fashion, the whole episode is just the one background with the text, and it says the Lost Episode, and then the second part of the text underneath it, and then it has the loose Japanese translation, because when we did Universe Warriors the Final Chapters, we wanted it to be very much like an anime, but in an audio format. So we wanted to keep that sort of like Japanese anime feel where we added the Japanese text. Now that I think about it, back then when we did it, we probably didn't get the translation 100% correct, but we wanted to stay in the original style, so we put that in there.
So this is it. The Fire Temple. Just beyond this door lies the Ice Scroll of Sealing.
You can kind of hear it, but there's like a fire sound effect in the background. That's just sort of to symbolize they're on the fire planet and it's burning. That's actually a torch. That sound effect is just a torch. Right there, that clip, that sound effect clip right there. I love that. I love the temple door. I have the credits to the one sound effect maker that I used for one of them in the description, but the sound effect of the stone temple door opening and then closing was just so cool, and I was so happy that we could find that. And then the footsteps, they weren't as loud as they should have been. I was on the floor on my hands and knees recording the footsteps, because when you record footsteps, you want it to be 100. You want to be accurate. You got to record each time you have your character moving. You got to record those footsteps yourself. You can tell when you are using footsteps that won't fit. I do it all of the time when I do footsteps. I do not create it, but for this one I created the footsteps myself, and it wasn't loud enough.
I guess there's no getting out that way. This place, it's just as Bakashi Tenzo said it would be.
I don't know if you can hear it as well as I can, or just because I know that this was a thing that happened. There's a very slight reverb on Mycen's voice in here. So and that's because when you're in a temple, it's not going to sound like, or a big open room, it's not going to sound like I'm just talking to you in a normal room. It's going to have some sort of echo to it. So whenever they're talking in the temple in this episode, I made it so you can very lightly hear the reverb. I think when I went in to make the reverb sound effect, it's only like 0.5% reverb on each line, because there are moments in this episode where you hear inner monologues, and I also reverb for that, and I didn't want people to get confused by, are they doing an inner monologue or in the temple? So the inner monologue is full reverb when just the actual sound of the temple is like 0.5% reverb, and then there's a moment at the end, but we'll discuss that when we get to the end.
Mycen, you will find the ice scroll of sealing in the fire temple.
Like right now we're listening to Bakashi, and that is supposed to be a flashback scene where Mycen is, because Mycen goes, this temple, it's just as Bakashi Tenzo said it would be. And then you have that flashback of, okay, this is when Bakashi Tenzo told me about this, but it's happening in his head. So you sort of hear like the echoey reverb.
Why in the fire temple? Wouldn't it make more sense for it to be in the ice temple?
For extra security measures, the ice scroll of sealing was sealed away inside of the fire temple, and the fire scroll of sealing was sealed away inside of the ice temple.
I guess that makes sense.
A word of warning, Mycen. During my time on the planet of fire and ice, I never once entered the temples. I have no idea what you might encounter there. All I know is the temples are one with the planet. It is said that the very history of those two planets are recorded on the walls.
So that whole episode, or pretty much this whole episode, and that whole monologue of Bakashi's from Universe Warriors, the final chapters, episode 6, is what created Spider Queen: The Origins, or also the Battle of Fire Knights, also known as episode 0 of Spider Queen, the series, which is kind of cool. We took that entire monologue and created the whole 40, 50-minute long special from that, which if you haven't watched that, I definitely suggest you watch that or give it a listen, because that is sort of like the prequel of the entire Spider Queen stories, and explains how and why Mycen was sent from the planet of Fire and Ice to Spideria. And that was released, 4 years ago now? I think we started recording that in 2019.
This wall, it seems to have a picture carved into it. These two guys in the middle are huge. I wonder who they are.
So as Bakashi said, the events that happen on the planet are recorded in the walls of the temple. So what Mycen's looking at is, I don't know what you call it, like the hieroglyphs or whatever, of the actual Battle of Fire and Ice that happened. So if you had watched the Battle of Fire and Ice, you might be able to pick up on that.
Huh? This guy over in this corner kind of looks like Bakashi Tenzo. I can't get distracted. I have to find the ice scroll of sealing. If I had to guess, I would say that the scroll is most likely on the pedestal that's in the middle of the room.
Now those footsteps were
Well,
awful.
Here it is. The ice scroll of sealing. Inside this scroll contains the information I need to become the Titan of Ice.
Bring it on, Kayan! It's not over yet!
All right. That appear sound effect of Kori coming out of the scroll is the same magical sound that happened when he was sealed away in the Battle of Fire and Ice. That's just kind of a cool fun fact. Now, before we get Kori in here, he's already said his first line. I had not recorded voice lines for Kori since 2019. Kori Sandbrand being Mycen's father. And in the Battle of Fire and Ice, Mycen was a little kid. So he had that little kid Mycen voice. And Kori had his normal adult voice. So that was fine. But now recording this, I had the struggle of Mycen being an adult who's older than his father Kori ever actually was, and Kori interacting with each other in the same episode, which made that really difficult for me recording that. Because Kori always just sort of had that more gravelly voice. And Mycen's voice just was just my normal voice. But now I had to struggle with that because they both sound very similar. So now I was like, how do I get them to not sound exactly the same? And that's all right, because I'm sure you in your lifetime have met a father and son duo that look exactly alike and have very similar voices. Like, that happens in real life. And a lot of the times in shows like this, the actor that plays the son will also play the father. The actor that plays the father will play the son. That happens a lot. But now I had the struggle of them both being around the same age and both being adult males. And I had to try to change their voice. And that was a little bit difficult. So when I did this, I recorded for Kori first before I recorded for Mycen. And I gave Mycen a little bit more of like a higher voice than what the rest of his voices in Universe Warriors, the final chapters. But I did want there to be that somewhat different, just very different voice between the two of them so you could tell them apart. It was difficult at first. I won't say it wasn't. Kori's voice, it was difficult to do back when I did it because it's a huge strain on the vocal cords. But I did it. I was able to do it. At first I had to listen to the Battle of Fire and Ice, the whole thing through a couple times just so I could get that voice back. Because it had been since 2019, was that 2021, 22, 23, almost 4 years since I recorded for Kori.
Huh? Where am I? Who are you? Where's Kyan? What?
I've wanted to meet you for so long.
So this is the first time that Mycen is really seeing his father since the Battle of Fire and Ice. And even then, he didn't really see his father very much. They were in the middle of a civil war, and Mycen was sort of sent to a daycare program. I don't know what you want to call it. Just a place where they look after the children of, active military service people. So Mycen never really knew his father that much. He knew him a little bit, but never really had many interactions. So this is really the first time that Mycen is meeting his father. And it's the first time in a long time that Mycen has met someone in his own family, like legitimate bloodline family ever. Like, he had his grandmother, Grandma Glacia, but, this is the first time he's having an experience where he gets to meet, his actual father, his bloodline father. Orzik Spider King was his father for a while, and I think that Mycen sort of views Orzik as his true father, that and Bakashi Tenzo as the father figures in his life. But this is sort of the first time that Mycen gets to meet him, and it gets a little bit emotional. And in the director's cut of this episode, I use different music, and all right, here we go.
It seems
we'll go back a bit.
I've wanted
Listen to this line.
I've wanted to meet you for so long. It seems like an eternity.
Just who do you think you are? Get off of me!
Kori's not one for physical touch. Mycen hugs him at that point and kind of hear the sound effect, and Kori just pushes him away. Kori is very just to himself.
That's right. You probably don't recognize me, but I recognize you.
So, Mycen and Kori look a lot alike. Kori probably has more battle scars to him just from being in more intense. That's not true. Mycen's been in a lot of wars. If Mycen doesn't have battle scars, the main character very often does. Well, that's not 100% true, but I don't imagine Mycen having battle scars the way that Kori does. In this point in Universe Warriors, the final chapters, Mycen's old. He has a grown-up daughter that's at this point. So I imagine Mycen's hair, which is now blue, it's starting to turn to like that whitey snow color. So with the Icean race, their hair is blue, and as they get older, the hair turns to like a whitey snow color. And I imagine that Mycen's hair definitely is a whitey snow color at this point, when Kori isn't, because Kori died at a very young age. So Kori probably looks younger than Mycen does, but they look a lot alike. It's a father and son. So Mycen can instantly recognize who his father looks like. And I think just instinctively as his child, having never met his father before, it's just something that he can tell that it's his father. And I'm sure he has seen photographs too.
I'm Mycen Sandbrand, your son.
What? That's impossible. I had
Bakashi Tenzo sent me to Spideria.
That meddler.
Bakashi Tenzo never said it, but you had ordered him to kill me, didn't you?
Bakashi, listen.
All right, so this part that we're going to right now, after Mycen says, Bakashi Tenzo ordered you to kill me, didn't you? And then Kori goes, this is now a Kori flashback, which you can kind of tell from the reverb. And the audio in this flashback is the actual audio from the Battle of Fire and Ice. And this is back before Bakashi's vocal cords got destroyed in the war. So he still has that sort of younger, cheerier speech. Very much a Kakashi sounding voice. It is no secret to anyone that Bakashi is loosely a Kakashi. Not like, I don't want to say Bakashi is a copy of Kakashi. That's not true at all. It's just the name. It is really just the name. I am someone that really likes the Kakashi character. Kakashi is my favorite character from Naruto. So when I was making there was always going to be a teacher figure. He never had a name, but I decided to give him the Bakashi name, sort of as like an Easter egg or a hey, you know, an Easter egg towards Naruto. You'll see this a lot of time in anime and other shows, is that there are little call outs to other shows, other characters, other artists. And this is just sort of mine is, hey, I really like the Kakashi character. We have Bakashi. The characters are not the same characters at all. But his voice in this point was definitely sort of like that more relaxed voice that Kakashi has, where he doesn't really care about anything.
Listen to me.
We'll go back to the beginning of this flashback.
Didn't you?
Bakashi, listen to me. I want you to put him in one of those emergency evacuation spaceships. Set his destination to the black hole that presides at Quadrant 692.
But, sir, that would kill you.
Good. Get that pesky brat out of my hair forever. Now go! I need to gather troops.
Yes, sir.
So that's the end of the flashback scene.
I don't know the details. Bakashi Tenzo never told me that you ordered my execution. But it wasn't too hard to figure it out. Not from the way that he and Granny Glacia used to describe you.
So Granny Glacia is Mycen's grandmother, who he meets in the sequel series of Spider Queen. So Spider Queen goes Spider Queen, which is around, as of this point, Spider Queen the series is around 101 episodes long. And then after that comes a sequel series, Spider Queen's Wizard Warriors, and in that series, Mycen meets Granny Glacia. Again, this is all spoilers to what happens in Spider Queen, so as it's stated in the beginning. Spider Queen, the series, is pretty much all written. Like, we have the entire storyline written, because if you don't know where you're going, it's kind of hard to write something. And the story changes a lot. Like, half the things that I say might change in the future, but we have a basic idea of what happens.
My mother is still alive.
Not anymore. She died, sacrificing her life to save us all back during the Third Intergalactic War. She was a hero.
There was a third?
A lot has happened while you were sealed away, Father.
Sealed away?
I will answer your questions, Father. But first, you need to answer mine.
Fine. What is it?
Fine. What is it? The way that I had Kori say fine, that was weird. Fine. It was almost like he was singing it.
Like I said, I have wanted to meet you for quite some time now. You're probably wondering why, considering I knew you ordered my execution. The answer is quite simple. I wanted to know why.
That's a pretty reasonable explanation. I want to know why you tried to kill me. But also, do you really need an excuse to want to see your father for the first time?
Why did you order the execution of your own son?
Damn you, Bakashi.
Don't you damn him. Bakashi Tenzo has been more of a father to me than you ever were. Now answer the question.
Fine, I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything.
All right, we're about to go into Kori's inner monologue here. A lot of people had questions about Mycen's mother, Snow, and everything that happened. I promise you, all of those questions are actually answered later down in other episodes, because that's storytelling. Storytelling makes you want to know answers, and you keep coming back until you find those answers.
From the beginning, I met your mother, Snow, when we were both children.
Snow? My mother's name was Snow?
So, Snow. The name Snow, it's not like S-N-O-W, it's S-N-O. And it's pronounced more like a Snow, imagine like there's an A in that, S-A-N-O, like a snow. It's not just snow.
That's a beautiful name. Yes, for a beautiful woman. Snow and I grew up in the same village, and were
It's
the
true.
best of friends.
They were.
Snow was always getting into trouble. She loved to have fun, and she had the biggest heart in the whole village. She would do whatever she could to help someone. Even as we got older, she retained her youthful energy.
All right, so this isn't a very important little piece of information that's given here, is that Mycen's mother, Snow, she was always causing trouble. She got into mischief, but she had the biggest heart. And even as she got older, she retained her youthful energy. And that explains a lot about Mycen as who he is. Because Mycen is silly. Especially when he was younger, he was not the brightest knife in the shed. The sharpest knife in the shed, whatever it is. Mycen's not bright. And he's very silly. And he's always causing trouble and getting into mischief, especially with Spider Doc. Spider Doc gets sick of Mycen's crazy antics, but Mycen also has a big heart and wants to help everybody. And this is sort of a big thing here because you learn Mycen, yes, because of, you know, the trauma that happened to him and his memory erasure and all the stuff that happened to him as a child, he was silly like that and wasn't always the brightest. But it also, a lot of that comes from his mother, who also was just like that.
I guess you could say she was a kid at heart.
A kid at heart.
I love your mother very much, and the day we got married was the best day of my life. Unfortunately, we were in the middle of a civil war against the Firens, so we didn't have a lot of time to spend with each other. When I found out Snow was pregnant, I was very excited. I couldn't wait to be a father.
I like how Kori doesn't sound excited. That was a choice that I made as the director and as the actor. That this is just how Kori sounds. Kori is he can't be bothered with anything. Kori is a broken man. He's had everything that he's loved and cared about was taken from him. And he just doesn't really care about anything anymore. And that's why his tone of voice just sort of sounds the same throughout the entire thing. And if you watched the Battle of Fire and Ice, you can see that. You can see that Kori is very much a broken man.
Finally, Snow and I were going to have a family. However, all that changed the day you were born. The love and joy that once filled your mother's heart vanished. She had one look at you and started spouting nonsense about how you were worthless and how you would never gain any power. She blamed me, saying my genes were weak. After that, she just stood up and walked out of the hospital. I never saw her again.
All right, so a lot of people asked, why did Mycen's mother do this? Why did Mycen's mother think that he was a weakling? Why did Mycen's mother up and leave if she was such a joyous, loving person? Storytelling. The answers will be revealed down the line.
The woman I loved, my best friend, left because you were an utter weakling. So I hated you. You, I used to tell myself. She left because of you. So I didn't want you in my life. You were worthless to me.
Kori has always sort of been like this stricter, I don't want to say hard ass, but pretty much, yeah. Yeah. Sort of like jerky, very warrior-like guy. And in Spider-Queen, the second movie script that we have written, you know, I don't want to spoil it. But anyway, we see Kori as a child at one point, and he's the same way. He's just very strict, and when the one person that he cares about and loves leaves him, that breaks him. And he doesn't care about his son, his kid any longer. He cares about the fact that his best friend, his wife, the love of his life has left him, and that it is effectively his child's fault to his knowledge.
So there. That's the truth. Now you answer me. Where am I?
You answer
What
me.
happened? And why are you here? Well, fine. You gave me my answer. Now I'll give you yours. This is what I understand from what Bakashi Tenzo told me.
So at this point, now we're just restating what happened in the Battle of Fire and Ice to what Mycen understands what Bakashi told him, because Bakashi is the only living survivor of the Battle of Fire and Ice. Not true. Fiametta and Flareon survived, but they weren't there at the end.
Back during the Battle of Fire and Ice, you and Rosé's father obtained the power of Titans. Rosé? You mean you're friends with Kyan's daughter?
So Mycen and Rosé, which is Kyan's daughter, Kyan was who Kori was fighting during the Battle of Fire and Ice, have a very interesting relationship. We won't get too into that right now, because that will all be explained in other episodes. But if you've watched Universe Warriors, the final chapters, you will understand Rosé was the younger sister of Mycen's best friend, and in a way, they were always a family, the three of them, Mycen, his best friend, and Rosé. And then as they got older, Rosé sort of walked down the wrong path and separated. But, Mycen never held that against her and was always willing to welcome her back in. And Rosé has, pretty much has a crush on Mycen and loves him and cares about him. Mycen, who is also at this point a very broken man, doesn't really know how to replicate that feeling towards her, because Mycen's already been married. Mycen has lost his wife. He almost lost his daughter. Mycen is broken and isn't willing to accept that. But so Rosé and Mycen have a very interesting relationship, but Rosé to Mycen has always just been family.
Rosé is like family to me. Is that a problem? I guess not. There was a time when Kyan and I were friends.
True. Kind of.
Now back to what I was saying. You and Rosé's father obtained the power of Titans. But you couldn't control the power, and you went rampant. You even managed to break the planet in two.
Yeah, so imagine, I don't want to say impulse waves, or can't think of the word right now, and it's driving me crazy because I can't think of it. The waves of friction or force that come from their fight was just expelling, and it was so powerful. It was slicing planets and anything in two because of just how strong they were. I don't know why I can't think of the exact word. I say it in the actual thing, but yeah. And it split the planet in two. So now it's no longer the planet of fire and ice. It's the ice planet and the fire planet, which sort of solves the problem of the Civil War.
What? You must not be able to remember what happened when you lost control.
Shockwave. That's the word I was looking for.
Father, the planet of fire and ice is no more. Now there are two planets. The ice planet and the fire planet.
And there's a lot of irony to this, because the whole Battle of Fire and Ice was caused because of a shift in the planet's orbit, which then created the two sort of lands to merge. Because imagine a planet that was split directly in half, one all being icy and snow, one being like lava, fire, and magma. And then because of the shift in the orbit and the planet turned the wrong way, the lava and fire started to spread into the ice territory and the ice into the fire territory, and they viewed it as the other side trying to take their land. And with two lands that used to be a friendly relationship and be one had turned to fight. But they didn't know that it wasn't the other land trying to take their land. It was an accident. And then it ends to their own destruction. And the irony is that in the end, the planet breaks in two and they have their own planets. But at that point, everyone dies. So it's now they get what they want, but it cost everything, which is the point that Bakashi was trying to make.
What, really? I still don't quite understand. The power that you and Rosé's father had was a danger to the entire universe. Your leaders, Grandmasters Mofubuki and Maguma Agni. Yes, them. They decided to seal you away in order to protect the universe from total destruction. What? All the Icians and all the Firans sacrificed themselves to seal the two of you away. The Ician and Firan races are no more.
No more.
All that's left is Rosé, my daughter Glacia, and myself.
No way. So they all died because
Of you, yes. Ugh. Right now, we are inside of the Fire Temple. When I opened the ice scroll of sealing, I had no idea your soul would present itself to me. But perhaps it did because your elders knew that this day would eventually happen.
So when Kyan and Kori became the Titans of Ice and Titan and Fire, they effectively had died. Their bodies had died. But since they had gone through the training to become the Titans, their body became one with the planet and they turned into the Titans. So Kori is not technically alive anymore as it was his soul was. His soul was trapped when they sealed away the power of the Titans, his soul was trapped into it. And when the scroll was unleashed, his soul was unleashed and is now able to go to the afterlife. But Mycen is saying, well, maybe your soul was trapped in here because your elders knew one day I would come looking for this power and we would meet, is basically what he is saying.
But why are you here?
A new threat to multiversal survival is coming. His name is Daragon.
Fun little story about Daragon here. Daragon was a character that was created on a whim, and then he ended up being the main villain of Universe Warriors, the final chapters. The main villain was supposed to be Cacnai. Cacnai was supposed to be the main villain of Universe Warriors, final chapters, and that's not what happens. Cacnai sort of becomes an afterthought, but he's the main villain that they're all looking for until, oh my gosh, something even bigger is coming. And you sort of see that in Dragon Ball Z, like the androids and Cell saga. Everyone's worried about the androids and Cell shows up, and now you have this other sort of bigger villain. And I always thought that was sort of a cool thing that they did. But so one day I was just sitting down, I was like, what can we do to just sort of change the story up a little bit when I was making this? Let's add a new character, one that's just destruction itself. What should I name him? And I said Daragon. We'll just add an A to Dragon, and it's just Daragon. And that's how Daragon got created. He was literally just a spur-of-the-moment character, and then it just sort of ended up being like this almighty being that is just insanity itself. But, yeah. So Daragon was a fun character when I created it. Just a little fun Daragon side there.
And he has the power to destroy everything.
So you came here to obtain the power of the Titan of Ice. Forget about it. If I couldn't master that power, then a weakling like you doesn't stand a chance in hell.
Standing here, I can tell that you were quite the powerful warrior back in the day. I can sense it from your Tsar.
So, Mycen can sense Tsar now. As I said, this takes place in the future. A lot has changed with Mycen. Especially coming up here, you're about to see a lot of Mycen spoilers. So, if that's something you don't want to see, don't watch it. But that's why we gave the spoiler warning at the beginning, because this definitely has stuff that you're going to see coming down the line.
However, I have long since surpassed you, father.
Don't be absurd. You were just a worthless weakling with no talent whatsoever.
So when Mycen was born, they went and they saw how much Tsar he was born with. Everyone is born with Tsar. Everyone's born with a talent in Tsar. Mycen didn't really have anything. His Tsar level was very low. And you see that especially when he first went to Spideria. Mycen, he was very physically strong. He stronger than most normal Spiderians, because Icians they are more powerful warriors. So it makes sense that he's more strong, but he didn't have that talent in Tsar whatsoever. So this is what Kori is referring to by you were an utter weakling. You didn't have any talent in Tsar whatsoever. Until he met Bakashi Tenzo, who taught him how to do it, and Bakashi was also someone who did not have any Tsar when he was a child. And Bakashi ended up being one of the strongest warriors in the universe.
How could you have possibly surpassed me?
You're right. I don't have any talent. And for many years, I couldn't even really use magic. But Bakashi Tenzo taught me that you don't need talent to be successful in life.
Which is very true in real life. All you need is hard work and dedication. Everyone has a little bit of talent in them. Everyone has talent in something. But just because you don't have a natural talent in something that you want to do, but someone else does, don't look at them and say, man, they've got talent. I don't have it. I'm going to give up. Work hard and you can succeed in anything. I truly, truly believe that.
If you work hard, you can achieve anything. But you don't.
As soon as you start doubting yourself, that is when you can't succeed in the thing you want to do. If you have any little bit of doubt in you, you're not going to be able to do what you want. But if you just go into it saying, I know I can do this, I'm good at this, I can succeed, and you put in the hard work and dedication, I guarantee you that you can do what you are putting you set your mind to do.
Don't believe that, do you?
It's not easy.
Fine then. Why don't I show you just how much stronger I am than you?
So now Mycen is going to go through how he's obtained all of the power that he has. Because right now, in this episode, in Universe Warriors, the final chapters, Mycen is the strongest being in the universe. Not true, Cacnai is. Cacnai has become stronger than him because he absorbed Flareon. But at this point, Mycen and Flareon, before that, were on equal terms as being the very most powerful beings in the universe.
What you're looking at now is just me and my normal power.
This sort of in this power up that Mycen did, you can hear it. His whole body freezes, and just imagine his entire body just turns completely to ice.
This is a power I tapped into when I was just a child and my Icean powers were unstable. I was fighting Spider Witch when I tapped into this. I called it, "No more Mr. Nice Guy!" My whole body turns to ice.
This was a really hard line to record because I went from Mycen's adult voice to Mycen's child voice back to Mycen's adult voice. All in one recording, all in one take, which is very difficult. So I think it was this form I tapped into when I was fighting Spider Witch. I called it, "No more Mr. Nice Guy!" This power was unstable. It was hard because I had to go up, down, up, down. But I did it. It's not as hard as it sounds, but it was tricky. There was a trick that I had to do to make that line work. And as Mycen said, his powers were unstable. And you hear Spider Doc talk about that in the very first episode of Spider Queen. Mycen's power is unstable because he was sent to Spideria at such an early age where he's supposed to be developing his cognitive abilities and his skills and things around him, that he was never able to do that in the place that he was born, where Iceans need to develop. Iceans need to be in colder climates, need to be there. And because of that, Mycen's body started to try to adjust to Spideria, and he had a unique thing where he started growing Spiderian cells, and they sort of were fighting his Icean cells, and he was just unstable. And you can kind of see that when Mycen first lands in Spideria. He has black hair. You can kind of see a little tint of blue, and everyone's worried about his powers, exploding and him accidentally freezing the whole planet because he doesn't know what's going on. His powers are unstable, and that's what this form is.
Ice, and everything that I touched turned to ice. It wasn't a very safe power. However, I could only really use my ice magic when I was in this form. But all that changed when I was fighting Glob King, and my Icean cells awoke.
I will never forgive you for what you've done!
So this little scene right here, a lot of people will probably not even notice it because people are just sort of trying to imagine. If they're listening to an audio drama or the purpose of an audio drama where you're imagining everything in your head, you're probably not even looking at what's playing. If you did, you get to see this nice, beautiful little animation that we have done here. So in 2022, what just happened, we took sort of a break from Spider Queen. We released it, I think, episode 6 in the summer, and then there was nothing from the summer to now. Pretty much, and that's because we were working on this. The actual animated clip is a lot longer than this. It's probably about a minute long. I cut it down for this piece specifically. I created this animated clip for my senior graduation project for college, and I really, really liked it, and I wanted to actually be able to put it in something to be put up on YouTube, because for my senior graduation thesis process, I actually produced the 83rd episode of Spider Queen, which right now we have up through episode 6 on the channel. But I jumped ahead to episode 83, which is the climax of Spider Queen, which you sort of see right here. Spoilers. When Mycen stabilizes his power in this fight. And it looks really cool. You can see Mycen, he transforms. He can control his ice powers. And you get to see this cool little thing. And if you weren't actually watching the video, you probably didn't see this happen. But this is sort of a little Easter egg. If you didn't, go back and watch this. I think if you go to 14 minutes and 40 seconds in, it'll be right to when it's about to start. I really love it. SethFireburst Animation Studios did this, and it came out great. So thank you for that.
Once my Icean cells awoke, I really had no use for this form. I mean, it still gave me a huge power-up, but it was dangerous, and now I could use ice magic.
So what? This form of yours is nothing special.
Jealous, aren't you?
What?
Granny Glacia told me you would have been. This icy form is one that only certain members of the Sandbrand clan can achieve. And you couldn't do it.
But it's not a practical form.
All right, so at this moment, fun fact, at this moment when I was recording Mycen's line, there is a heater that is right underneath the studio. And when I was in the studio recording this lines, we were in the middle of a blizzard. I live in Maine. We live in the Northeast. We get snowstorms. We got hammered by 3 snowstorms in a row. It was insane. And I was recording this during a blizzard. So the heater that was right underneath like the recording studio turned on. And it is, about this big. And when it turns on, the whole room starts to shake and it makes the most loud noise. So you can sort of hear at the end there, I was like, oh my gosh, because the heater turned on, I had to cut it. We had to go down. We had to try to get the heater. We had to wait for the heater to turn off, and it took a while. But just a fun recording fact for you.
So why should I care?
I was able to harness the power of this form and turn it into this.
Mycen transforms again.
By focusing the power to different spots in my body, I was able to control it and be able to use the incredible power of the Sandbrand clan. As a bonus, when I focused the power, it grew this cool ice armor and my hair turned to icicles.
So imagine his body is just like this really cool looking ice armor, and his hair is, as he said, his hair is icicles. The way that I envision his hair is sort of like a Super Saiyan hairstyle, but not obviously not Super Saiyan, but his hair is just ice, and maybe not even just straight up like that. It could just be his normal hair. It literally turns to ice. His body gets so cold, like little icicles.
Cool, isn't it?
No pun intended. Cool, isn't it?
This form is strong, but it didn't hold a candle to Flareon.
You fought Flareon?
So Flareon, as if you've watched Spider Queen the series, is one of the legendary Coordinates. There are 4 legendary Coordinates. They're not divine beings, but they're very powerful beings, and they were all trained. So the guardian of the universe, the guardian angel of the universe who oversees and protects the universe, wanted to retire, and he wanted someone to fill his place. So he picked the 4 strongest or most qualified candidates from the 4 different sectors of the universe and trained them, and then had them sort of like watch over their own quadrant and sort of be like test guardians so we could see how that they react. And Flareon was one of them, and he was the evil one. He turned up being evil. But he's very powerful. He's probably one of the most powerful, if not. And you see that when Mycen fights him.
It's like I said, Father. A lot has happened while you were sealed away. This failure child of yours worked hard, fought in many battles, and made it all the way to the top!
So when Mycen reaches this new form that he reaches, it's divine power. It's very high up power, very hard to reach. And in Spider Queen the series, in Universe Warriors, whenever there was a divine anything, whenever a divine being showed up, or whenever a divine being started to talk or transformed or anything, there was always like this church bell that played, just to symbolize that. That was my symbolization. And they also have this like echoey voice too, like an echoey voice, just to symbolize that they're different and they're higher up than everyone else. And I actually went in, and it took me forever to find the same exact church bell sound effect that we used in Universe Warriors Final Chapters. But that is the same one.
All the way to the top!
He's powering up.
I first tapped into this divine power when I fought Flareon. Then again when I faced Gengo in the tournament. Now this power is strong. I keep the icy armor and grow 8 shadowy spider legs.
Like the Gargonian chant that goes on in the background. I probably butchered that word. That nice. Oh.
I achieved this by mastering the balance and by combining my Icean powers with my Spiderian powers.
I've never seen power like this before.
It's truly one of a kind. It makes it hard to believe that a power like this isn't strong enough to take on Daragon. The path that follows Daragon holds nothing but chaos, destruction, despair, universal eradication.
Universal eradication.
I need more power, Father. I need the Titan of Ice.
I see. Perhaps I was wrong. Bakashi did a fine job raising you. Alright, I'll tell you everything you need to know in order to become the Titan of Ice.
Mycen begins his training to become the Titan of Ice. Will he be able to master it in time? Or will Daragon bring about the destruction of the universe? Find out as the battle begins next time on Spider Queen's Universe Warriors, the final chapters.
Hello, peons. It's I, Katnai. I've been getting bored sitting here. I think it's about time I invade Spideria. Next time, the universes assemble. All are in peril. The battle for the multiverse begins.
It has been so long since I recorded Cacni. Even longer than Kori. Even longer than Battle of Fire. It's probably been 5 years since I recorded Cacni. It was really hard to find that voice again.
Because it's so distinctful. And it kind of hurts my voice when I do it.
But yeah, that was the Cacni voice. Anyway, that was the response, our first podcast to our first Spider Queen podcast. And it was for the Universe Warriors, the final chapters, the last episode, episode 7, Father and Son, Birth of a Titan. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching this podcast. Tune in for the next podcast that will be going out with episode 7 of Spider Queen. And maybe we'll have some members of the cast and crew here with us for the next one. All right. Peace out, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next one.